A couple years ago, one of my best friends, Chad Seabright, was dealing with me on the way I was treating my wife, and I didn't even see it. We were going on vacation, and she was taking the whole brunt of everything with the kids, and it was killing her, and I didn't see it, and I was just blind. And he came to me, and it was just one night, and we're hanging out, and he looks at me, and tears are in his eyes. I'd never seen him before, and you know, he's like, I've always respected you, and you've been this leader and a voice in my life, and that was kind of how our relationship was, and he looked at me, and he says, hey, but I see something in your life that's just, it's killing me, and it's killing your wife, and I don't know if you've seen this, and he rebuked me. He rebuked me. He didn't come to me as my dad. He didn't exert authority. What would happen? This is not my language. This was brand new for me. What would happen if you were in a service and you come in, and again, I don't understand why people come in and say, oh, give it to us. That's down the road. That's some other deal they're doing down there. When you come in here, I believe Jesus comes before you and says, oh, I love you. I want to be like this with you. But I'm telling you, there's something in your life, just consider this, that's blockading and it's killing you. And man, I want to speak. That's how I smoked cigarettes for 10 years. And I quit smoking. And it wasn't to be a socially acceptable, politically correct Nazarene. That wasn't it. You'd say, why'd you quit smoking? He came to me. I felt that. Every time you're stressed, Jeremiah, you lean on that thing and not on me. And oh, I'm just so jealous. I'm better. And he wooed me. That's how he's always spoke. I didn't share that stuff because I thought I was odd or maybe liberal, which is worse. You know, I didn't know. I mean, seriously, I didn't know. I wanted to be an acceptable Nazarene kind of evangelist. Jesus does not come to you just, and you walk out of here just going, oh, boy. You heard people talk like that in the church? Boy, I felt that today. Wow, God really, that wasn't God. That's not my Jesus. Unless he had a bad day or something. He never talks to me that way. He comes as a friend. That's the context in which he's going to approach you. His language. Now, this is so neat. The content in that context is he wants, as a friend, to rebuke, and he wants to discipline you. The primary word for rebuke, it literally means to bring to light or to expose. That's how that word is used. I did not know this before I did the study. There are 2 different Greek words for rebuke in the New Testament. Didn't know that. One word for rebuke, Jesus does use it, but he uses it towards like the wind and the waves when he rebukes the wind and the waves. In the New King James and the King James translation actually is a better translation with this translation than NIV. It's not translated rebuke, it's translated reprove, the other one, which is this one. And this one is, again, to expose. Jesus comes and says, listen, I want to reveal something to you. I want to bring it to light. I want to drag it out so you can see it. This word here is a relational term. It's a relational word. In other words, it demands relationship. For instance, this blew me away. Luke chapter 4, remember this? I judged John the Baptist. I did. I judged John the Baptist. I took him as this loudmouth jerk who hears about Herod and his, the whole situation, marrying his brother's wife and all this, and Herod found out about it, or John the Baptist found out about it, went down there just to give Herod a piece of his mind. I misjudged John. It says, but when John rebuked Herod, not wind and the waves, reproved him. Reproved him. There are certain scholars, which I absolutely fundamentally agree, that suggest that Herod and John shared some relationship. Because Herod never wanted to kill John. He never wanted to kill John. And I thought, but John was such a jerk. He wasn't a jerk. He ran down to the borders and said, Herod, killing me. Approached him, this word, exposed it. We were like this. And you're transgressing and you're coming in between. And he was all bent out of shape about it. He wasn't a jerk to Herod. He reproved him. Said, did you see what you're doing? And it wasn't Herod that really wanted John dead. It was his wife, man. So, and we don't know. Scholars don't know that relationship. I mean, hey, did they go to summer camp together? Did they room? I don't know. They ride bikes in the park? We don't know how they knew each other. But there was some kind of relationship, and that's how that word is used. I never thought I would say this as a dad, but we don't spank our kids all that often. I mean, once in a while, just so they'll know what it is, we'll do that. But, I mean, really, we don't spank our kids. We reprove them. We talk to them. We spanked for a lot of years because I thought that's just what you did. You know, you do something wrong, we beat you. That's how it's going to work. Just let them know, okay? Well, I'm sorry, I know, but I still have to beat you. Why? Because that's what we do as parents. We beat you, okay? When in actuality, you don't have to spank all the time. I was with this old Dr. Manley. Dr. Stephen Manley has been a mentor in my life for years. We were out together at a restaurant, and I told Lana not to leave the restaurant, and she wanted to play over by the front door. Some of the older boys went out, and she followed them. And she knew she did wrong because she's standing there at the door going. And I went out, and Dr. Manley was with me, and he was walking to my car. And I said, you're getting a whipping when we get to the car. And she's going, please don't spank me. You know, and inside I'm going, don't spank her, Jeremiah. Be a pushover. It's what you want to do. You know, don't spank her. I take her to the car, I put her in, and Dr. Manley's there, and I'm strapping her in. And I said, should I spank her? Expecting him to take my side. And he goes, no. I'm like, you traitor. Get out of here. You know. He goes, no, I really wouldn't. And I thought he was, first I thought he was going to undermine me in front of my daughter. He looked at her and he goes, she knows she did wrong. She knew she did wrong. And I looked down at her and I just said, you know, and it was an exposing moment that this is why I didn't want you to do this. And I exposed what she did wrong, which is also, discipline came in a second, but discipline wasn't the, rebuke and discipline also oftentimes go together. So it isn't this, God doesn't beat us. It's the context of friendship that when Jesus comes and he speaks, I care about you and I want this relationship with you. I mean, literally, that's the relationship that God wants to have. We say it all the time that Jesus is my best friend, but then we don't act like it. He wants to have that kind of intimacy with us. And when he's speaking to you in a service like this and your heart's beating, you understand he's sitting before you going, man, I hope he's listening. Man, I hope she's hearing this. Because there's something going on in your life that is breaking relationship with me. In fact, it's tearing your marriage up. He's not ready to send you to hell over it. He's dealing with you so you don't destroy. That's the context. Now he says, those whom I love in that relationship, I expose. And I not only expose, which is reprove, but I also, he says, discipline. Now, in the English language, the word discipline is akin to our educational. Discipline, disciple. Those two terms are linked together. In their culture, it's linked as well, but they're two different words. Discipline means it's akin to teaching. It literally means to educate. So when Jesus exposes, he does that for the purpose of educating you. There's this passage in Matthew, and I didn't give this to you, brother, but there's this passage in Matthew chapter 11, around verse 25, where Jesus is in the temple, and he stands up, and he screams out, all those who are weary and heavy laden, come to me. He talks about his yoke is easy. I didn't know this, but the word yoke it was a term in their culture for teaching. You took on your rabbi's yoke. Well, the leaders of Israel, their yoke was oppressive. I mean, they come to a guy carrying his mat, and Jesus said that all the time. You not only keep yourself out, you prevent anybody else coming in the kingdom. You're so oppressive and just, steeped in sin at birth. Jesus stood up and said, listen, come to me. Like, man, I'm so easy. I want you in. I'll bend over backwards. It's easy. It's light. Man, I love you. And I'm speaking to you about your betterment. I mean, I want to be like this with you. And so I expose the areas of your life that don't look like me. And I educate you. Every area of growth in my life, every time in my life where I've grown and God has dealt with me, I had never felt, and it was weird. And again, for someone who wasn't raised in church, I oftentimes felt like, well, maybe I'm not feeling convicted right. Because aren't you supposed to feel like, guilt and terrible and all this, and God is really ticked off, and if you do it again, he's going to... I always felt like God was coming to me and saying, you're killing yourself. I'm trying to prevent... I love you, man. I love you. And I want to expose this area of your life. And I want to reveal why I don't want you involved in that. It'll destroy every area. You're destroying your marriage here. This is not what finances are to look like. This is not what sexuality is to look like. This is not what relationships are to look like. He had to redefine, for instance, for me my whole entire perspective of masculinity. I grew up in a home where a man was a man. Man. Well, Jesus came and said, Jeremiah, I'm a real man. In fact, when you go to the dictionary and you look up for the definition of male, you should just look at Jesus. Because he's God's, it's not flesh. It's not flesh. But I have for so long, and this is something brand new in my life, he's been working, because these scenarios come in my mind. Military training, those of you, you probably can't identify with that, but military training. Sir, you come in, and that's the way I've always been. You come into a training, you come out, you see 4 or 5 guys around, you begin to think, okay, if he does this, I'm tearing his jugular out, and if he does this, I'm poking it, and I'm going to do this, and I go into that kind of mindset. And it's good to be aware, but I wonder what would happen if I got out of that car and said, wow, if he does this, watch Jesus move. Wow. I'm so, Jeremiah Bolich, I'd be embarrassed if you saw how fleshly I am. I was in my wife and I get about 2 or 3 date nights a year because we don't trust you guys to watch our kids. And, we just don't know people, honestly. And we were in Michigan, got a date night with a couple friends of ours. They all shared a babysitter, and one of my interns was watching the kids. And we went out to Borders. It was Tara and Brandon and Matt and Tasha and my wife and I. Went to Borders because we don't have a life and we really didn't know where else to go. And we only had about an hour and a half. So we went to Borders. And God had been dealing with me with this masculinity thing. It's brand new in my life. This young kid comes in. Remember this? And wearing this Jesus t-shirt. He caught my eye. I thought, how cool is that? Brandon and Tara knew him. And they're like, hey. He worked at a restaurant they went to. And how are you doing? They meet up and they're talking. Hey, this. Oh, I have your t-shirt. I didn't know he was a Christian or something. He's like, yeah. But he's really socially awkward and odd and arrogant. And he looks at me. And picks me out of the blue. I didn't say a thing. And he goes, who's the cream puff? And I was like, people just don't call me cream puff, And seriously, the first response was, get up, Jeremiah, hit him in the mouth, Jesus is going, no, don't do it. don't do it, And I'm seriously, I'm so fleshly minded, I did not know what to do. I just sat there. And I just turned away, and I was boiling on the inside, and at the same time confused. How does a Christian respond in this? And he picked on me for the next few minutes. And he would be talking, look, he's mad. He'd say that. And I'm just sitting there, and she was talking to Tasha, she didn't hear all of it, but I didn't know I was so confused. But he was there about 10 minutes, and, he finally was getting ready to leave, and he goes, hey, man, I hope I didn't offend you. And it came to me. I looked at him and I said, you didn't offend me. I said, you come in here using Christian language, wearing a Christian t-shirt, and speaking all Christian. but the way you speak to me does not make me feel the way that I feel when he speaks to me.